Oak City Move is a podcast on WKNC's 88.1 FM HD1 Raleigh, where we highlight people and organizations creating positive change in the Triangle and beyond. Oak City Move can be heard on air every Monday on 88.1 FM HD1 Raleigh or online at WKNC.org. To listen to episodes and more, go to our blog at blog.wknc.org or follow us on SoundCloud at WKNC881. Hello, 88.1 WKNC Raleigh. The song you just heard was Sweaty Linen by Surf Ninja 3. I'm Sophia Magnanini, your host, and you're listening to Oak City Move. Today we're joined by a very special guest, Maddie Lyon, business owner of Mend Mother, a Raleigh-based small business focusing on textile sustainability through accessible education, repair, and recirculation services. First off, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to join me. It's such a pleasure to have you here. And for listeners who aren't too familiar with Mother Mend, would you want to first start by kind of talking a little bit about what Mother Mend or Mend Mother is and what inspired you to work on it and create it?
Yeah, so I've worked in fashion and textiles. I went to college for fashion design and have been working in the industry since then. My first job out of college was at a men's suiting tailor, so I was doing alterations and really learning how to do them the right way, and then kind of worked that job for 9 months, and then ended up working my motivation was to be a designer, so I worked as a women's apparel designer for 5 years, and I feel like when you know how to sew, friends, family, people are always like, oh my God, you know how to sew? Can you fix this for me? Can you alter this dress for me? I'm going to a wedding. Can you do this? And I feel like it used to really irritate me because I'd be like, I can't do that. I don't want to do that, blah, blah, blah. But then after a while, when enough people ask you, you're like, wow, maybe I can actually help people out and start obliging them. And during COVID, I kind of started fixing a lot of things in my own wardrobe. And then as things started to open up a bit more, my roommate and I started having sewing parties where we had everyone bring an item and we would help them learn how to fix it. So I feel like since 2021, I've kind of been just exploring how to extend people's clothing so they don't feel like they have to throw them away. And sustainability is a really strong interest of mine. Just I'm a big outdoors person, so I feel like doing repairs and alterations is a really sort of immediate way to extend the use of something and sort of a more localized sustainability effort than maybe working at a company that's making a sustainable product. So that's kind of a long answer, but yeah, I love working with my hands, and I feel like you start working as a fashion designer and you spend a lot of time on the computer, and that kind of was a little bit of a reckoning, and I really wanted to find my way back to being able to work with my hands and sew things. So yeah.
No, that's awesome. Especially like you're saying, kind of sewing and kind of giving back is so important. And I feel like it's kind of used or utilized a little less than it used to be, especially in the state that we're in, where fast fashion is such a prevalent thing in our society. And it's just a lot of people kind of have that mentality now where it's like, oh, this is broken, I'll just get a new one, instead of actually thinking about, wait, I could fix this and make it something else that's kind of like my own, which is really cool that that's what you're kind of helping.
And something to add to my previous experience, I worked at as a designer at Kohl's, and then as a contract designer for Target. So my first few jobs out of college were very much in mass market fast fashion, and it's really staggering to see how much those companies produce when you work on the inside. And I feel like that was really something that made me kind of scratch my head a little bit and be like, is this really something I want to be partaking in as a industry professional? So it really got my gears going when I was working in those jobs. There's got to be something else out there that I can be doing that isn't this, especially sort of the traditional climbing the ladder in the fashion industry sort of route. I didn't really identify with it after a while.
But no, that's even more awesome because you've kind of seen it, like you're saying, firsthand. And instead of kind of you chose to go another way with it and kind of
Mhm.
go back and give back to the communities also with like helping to teach them how to also help repair. So then you're kind of creating this web of sustainability, which is really awesome. And it's also just really cool because I feel that that's something that should be more accessible to people, like learning like these certain classes and learning how to repair, reutilize their fabrics, that stuff, because it is so upsetting when you see how many like how much textiles goes to landfills and stuff, and
Mhm.
it's something that could be lowered by things like what you're doing.
Mhm. Yeah. It's simple. It's it just takes like education and awareness, I think is a really
Mm,
big part of that behavioral change.
mm. This is kind of a switch up question, but I love the name Mend Mother, and I kind of wanted to ask you
Mhm.
where you came up with it.
Yeah, it's kind of so when I was a grad student at State, I was kinda doing it as a side hustle and was just calling it, like, Mending by Maddie, and ironically, like, my best friend from college, her name is also Maddie, and at the time we had lived together when I lived in LA, and then I moved to Raleigh to go to school, and she was still living out there, and at the time, she was helping me a lot with, like, my graphics and some of the just sort of, like, marketing and, like, visual sort of identity of what I was doing, and we were trying to come up with a name for it that had 2 M's because we were both Maddie and Maddie, and I had, like, kinda just been wanting to call it Mend or, like, Mend period or just, like we did a lot of iterations, and she was like, "I think" I honestly, like, she kinda came up with it. She was like, "I think you should call it Mend Mother because it's, like, Mend Mother Earth, but it's also kind of vague, like, who is mother?"
Yeah.
And, I was like, "You know what? That's good enough for now." So I kind of just started using that name, and I've just stuck with it. I think it sounds nice, and it kind of included both of us in it at the time. She's not really helping me out anymore, but I've liked keeping it, and I think people like the name. So, yeah, it kinda just worked itself out.
No, that's awesome, especially like yeah, the backstory behind it, and it like holds
Mhm.
it's a like holds a place in your heart. Especially Mend
Yeah.
Mother, it's like got so many different meanings, like you were saying, like you could think about it in so many
Mhm.
different ways. So it's so I really love that name.
I've had so many people ask me if I have kids, and I'm like, No, I
Like,
don't, but maybe one day."
yeah. My next question was, what challenges have you faced? Like, well, I know it's hard to kind of create your own business and become an
Mhm.
entrepreneur, but what challenges did you face while turning your passion into a business?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the question for small businesses. There's so many aspects that are really challenging, but, like, really fulfilling. I think I I had a job that I quit to do Men Mother full time, and I think, like, the biggest transition is just, not having, like, that biweekly paycheck that you can depend on
Mm,
and really, having to turning, like, the passion that you love into, like, a monetary thing. It really changes how you work on things and how you think about it because on a daily basis, I am sewing and, like, dedicated to doing the craft, but I think about money a lot, just because that's how our world is
mm,
set up. So, I think, like, the financial aspect of it can be really challenging, and I think, I started the business with, like, not a ton of capital, or money, I don't know, whatever you wanna call it. I feel like in, like, startup culture, they call it capital,
yeah.
and I'm just like, "It's just money." I the challenge with that is just, like, getting up to the point where you can get consistent income, and we're still making our way there. It takes a while to get the consistency down. I think also just being your own boss and time management is a huge challenge. I'm, like, super ADHD, which is probably, like, why I've sort of gravitated towards being an entrepreneur because you
Mm,
get to do a lot of different things and a lot of problem solving. But one of the biggest challenges of being an ADHD individual is like time management and that like executive functioning. So, I mean, I have a ton of support in my life, which has made the journey a lot easier. Like, my husband is he has a steady job. So when things aren't, when I have a bad month or there's like something that I'm going to be late on paying, I do have like somebody who's backing me up and like emotionally, financially, just sort of like there in an emergency. I like am proud to say that we've like been able to like really like the first year we broke even, the second year we broke even again, so it's pretty awesome to not be like losing money on the business out the gate. But yeah, I mean, just like being your own boss is really tough, and it's really fun though, and there's a lot of flexibility in it. And I think just like the challenge of being like also being a small business owner can be like super isolating, which has changed now that I've got a few part-time employees. But yeah, I would say those are the biggest challenges. We live in a money driven society. So I wish I could do it for free.
And no, that's so true. But it's so awesome how, even though with all the challenges, you've been able to create this thing and make it grow even more. And it is, I know it's always hard, especially like you were saying, when it's like something that you love to do more as just like a hobby and
Hmm.
stuff, and then turning that into something where it's like you're monetizing it. But I feel like you
Hmm.
are doing such an amazing job at that, where it's also,
Thank
it's
you.
a lot of helping giving back to the community as well. And it's just really, really awesome. And I love that you're able to, like, where you are now, you're starting to get more and more, which is really awesome.
We're getting there. I feel like what's cool and interest has been interesting is sort of re like people learning about how much labor goes into sewing clothes is helping them understand like why their clothes shouldn't be so cheap,
Hmm.
and sort of like from on my end, like I'm super educated and like have a ton of experience. So like my services aren't necessarily inexpensive, but like trying to sort of educate people on why they shouldn't be inexpensive has been like a really interesting part of it as well.
Hmm. That kind of shifts to my next question. I was going to ask you,
Hmm.
why do you think our culture and like us as a society has shifted more away from repairing clothing and more towards replacing it?
Well, I think the sort of invention and promotion of like cheaper fibers like polyester play a really big role in that because it's like a resource that can be produced a lot more cheaply than some of the more natural fibers. So that's like one. I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. Um, Sort of on a like a policy level, like the NAFTA trade agreements in the
Hmm.
90s and like all of the production that was in the US kind of moving outside of the US and kind of making it less visible to the general public in our country. Like we don't see that labor really, so a little bit more it makes it more possible for companies to kind of pay people less because I don't know, I'm trying to think of a more like succinct way to say
No,
that. I
yeah.
just think like the outsourcing of labor to companies that have much lower standards for pay and lower work standards has really changed the industry. I think if we had a more booming local textile production industry, like the cost of living here is much higher, so people would understand, like would want to be making a certain amount of money. And whereas in India and Bangladesh and China and South America, there some people are getting paid like literally pennies a
Mm.
day to like create the beautiful garments that we wear every day. And I think over the last, like, I mean, obviously for like people my age and your age, it's kind of just like always been this way. Like we've always had access to really inexpensive clothing. So like, we hear our parents being like, oh my God, in my day I had like a jacket and three pairs of shoes. And it's like that stuff was really expensive and that's why they valued and repaired their stuff. But the sort of like planned obsolescence and sort of the mentality of like, well, why would I spend money repairing it when I can just buy something for the same price or cheaper is a really hard like psychological thing to kind of like unlearn. So I think that that's a really big part of it is just they make shit so cheap now. I mean, it's hard to compete and it's hard to convince people that they should pay more, um, without like making them feel really guilty
Mhm.
about buying cheap things, because I think at the end of the day also like affordability is like such a big conversation now and kind of has always been, but like especially now it's really hard to like tell someone they should go spend, you know, 3 times more on a pair of pants when they're feeling like insecure in their income. Like that's just a really hard kind of conversation to like have with people, because it's, yeah, it's a whole reframing. I don't know. Yeah.
No, yeah, I feel like you explained that really, really well. Because especially there is such a nuance when it comes into it, where especially like with affordability, like you were saying, but it is also
Mhm.
something where like this generation has, yeah, like you were saying, has only really ever known this, and so unlearning it is a little bit
I mean,
harder.
I grew up I grew up on Forever 21 and
Exact
Urban Outfitters.
same.
Like that's where I was like shopping in high school and middle school, and I hadn't, you know, you have no idea like what those purchase decisions actually mean for the people who are making your clothes. I actually just saw I Love Boosters,
Oh
and I
my
feel like,
gosh,
I don't know if you've seen
I
it,
need to
but
watch it.
it was probably one of the like best sort of like pop culture representations I've seen of like connecting sort of the end of the fashion chain to the beginning of it. And I just, they did a really good job of like highlighting like what a garment worker's life can look like. Sorry, I literally just
Yeah.
burped. But yeah, no, it was a great movie, and I would like highly recommend anyone who's kind of like wants to see a good movie but is also curious about sort of the ridiculousness of the fashion industry.
Mhm.
It was a good watch. Um, yeah.
But no, yeah, I need to go watch that movie like ASAP. But no, that is such a good point too because it's it's something that a lot of times people don't really think about it unless they are like in these industries or they know kind of what or they're more into like the fashion and that type of stuff. So it is
Mm-hmm.
harder to kind of make it more like universally known like the
Mm-hmm.
practices that go into it and what we're getting out of it and then what like the workers who are actually making the clothes get out of it. So it's just a
Mm-hmm.
whole nother like sidebar, but I feel like it's something that a lot of
It's a
people should be
rat's
thinking
nest.
about like
Yeah.
whenever they go and buy their clothes. Changing to our next kind of topic, Men Mother focuses on education, repair, and recirculation. Can you kind of explain what each of those pillars means in practice?
Yeah. So sort of in terms of a business structure, I would say repair and alterations are kind of the bedrock of the business. That's kind of the day-to-day stuff that I'm working on. And that's kind of the most consistent thing that we do. And that's probably the biggest of the three pillars. And then education has kind of just been baked into it. I started doing workshops even before I started doing Men Mother full time. And I feel like that's kind of been my way to make repair and alteration more accessible, like cost wise, because you can come to a class and learn some of the skills that you would like pay us to do for you, and then you can take them home and use them forever. And I think that's been, I absolutely love teaching. I think it's a great way to like, one, I'm not from Raleigh, so like I've taught a lot of classes and I've met so many people kind of, I think like the social aspect of my business is such an important part of it, because there is a lot of education that comes with like kind of previous, like what we were just talking about with your previous question, like there's a lot of education that comes with convincing people like where to spend their money and like how to think about purchasing and consumption. So the classes are just like really fulfilling for me, and I feel like I get to have really great conversations with people, and then it's also sort of a like unintentional marketing tool, because I get to meet people who wouldn't necessarily know about us otherwise.
Mhm.
And then the recirculation piece is probably like the part that we kind of do a little bit more sporadically. So I love doing clothing swaps, and I've hosted them the last 2 years in a row. I kind of like every March want to do like a really big clothing swap as a way to kind of show people one other option to like recirculate your clothes locally. And it's also a great way for us to kind of capture material to use in future projects. So I did this when I was living in LA too. Like you basically just like the I feel like the idea of a clothing swap has become a lot more popular over the last 5 years, 6 years, and it's a really awesome way to like engage with your friends, engage with your community, but also just like in really ensure that the clothes that you're collecting and then recirculating to community members are staying localized. Because donating clothes
Mhm.
to larger nonprofits or sort of just like charity shops is a great way to get rid of your clothes. I would never say like choose that over like don't throw your clothes away. Take them to a charity shop if that's kind of your last option. But there's not always a guarantee that stuff is going to end up on the floor. There's not always a guarantee it's not going to be like shipped off to another country to be redistributed or like end up in their environment. So I think the recirculation piece just kind of plays into like the reduce, reuse, recycle model of like, I want to teach people first to reduce and then to repair and reuse. And then as a last option, like how can you recycle and recirculate the things that you truly don't want anymore? So yeah, I love the like 3 R's. I feel like those are kind of like what make up the 3 pillars of my business. And yeah.
No, I love that. Especially the clothing swap is always such like a great idea because I feel like even though like you're saying it's something that has become more popular in the last couple years, not a lot of people really practice it with like a bigger group of people. Like
Yeah.
even I mean even just doing clothing swaps with your friends is like amazing and
Hmm.
helps keep it local. But like you're saying when they have a place that they know that other people from the community are going to be there
Hmm.
doing these clothing swaps, it just helps build I'm trying to think of the word, but helps build the community as well as helps um let people know about Men Mother
Hmm.
and educate them like you're saying on kind of the sustainability
Yeah,
aspect.
like I don't really love like traditional marketing. Like I don't do any like paid marketing on Google or Instagram really. I love like doing in-person stuff. So doing the
Mm.
pop-ups and clothing swaps is just a really great way to kind of like spread the gospel of what I'm doing. So to
Yes.
speak, but it's also just like so cool to like donate your stuff to a clothing swap and then like be out to lunch somewhere and be like, "Oh my God, that girl is wearing my top that I donated swap and now I'm
Yes.
gonna go say hi to her and like learn her name and then I'm gonna see her around town and maybe this is someone that I'll become friends with or I don't know. It's just kind of like awesome to kind of like tug that thread and see where it goes. Um,
No, exactly.
yeah, yeah,
It's like, yeah, creating a bunch of invisible strings between people as well as kind of
yeah,
tying it all back to Men Mother and the mission that you guys have with sustainability.
yeah. And like ultimately, one of my missions
Speaking,
is like I just want to like respect the garments that these people put so much effort into making and make like
mhm.
no money. Like we need to like respect the craft that goes into it and like prolonging the life cycle is just one way of doing that.
No, exactly. Because, yeah, like we were saying kind of in the beginning, where a lot of people we like become almost desensitized to like the fast fashion and how little these people are are paid to create such beautiful pieces
Mm-hmm.
that it's like if if someone here, if anyone was like, if I was paid to do that, I would be like, wait, I don't think I could even do this if I was like being paid hella.
Yeah,
But
exactly. No, it's crazy. You have like your favorite pair of jeans ever and like you wear them every single day and you just have no idea like how much blood, sweat, and tears went into making them. Um, yeah.
exactly. Kind of shifting to my next thing, I know we're talking a little bit more about community. How have you seen the Raleigh community respond to Men Mothers since you've kind of launched it?
I mean, I think like really well. I feel like people they love it. The people that I've like interfaced with and have like are my customers and have come to events like really love it and it's really cool to see people like be like, "Oh my God, I didn't even know that this existed anymore." And like I used to have a tailor and then she retired and I haven't known where to take my stuff and it's really wholesome. It's really nice. I Raleigh's a great place to like be a part of the community because it's so small and there's so many like mutual connections around town. So I feel like the community has responded well to it. I've been encouraged to keep going. So yeah, I don't know. It's been good so far. I like it. I like people's energy.
No,
I think that there's also like a real appetite for sustainability and like people are curious about it. So
hmm I know, because I've interviewed a bunch of like local Raleigh entrepreneurs, and I
mhm,
feel like the common theme between all of them is sustainability. And it's
mhm,
so nice to see that this like new wave of entrepreneurs, local businesses in Raleigh have these goals that are kind of like aimed on helping Raleigh grow and their community
mhm.
grow together, but in a sustainable, friendly way,
Yeah,
which
I think like we all really have like an appetite for community. I don't know, it's like we go like when there's floods and there's like there's just a lot of like bad stuff going on in the world and you want to have like a strong local community to be a part of. So I think like Raleigh goes hard for its small businesses. I will say that. Like I feel like people really
mhm.
turn out for small businesses in Raleigh, which is awesome.
Hmm. As we kind of come up towards the end of our chat,
Mhm.
what is some advice that you would give someone who wants to start a business focused on sustainability or social impact?
I think like having the ability to try stuff out before you fully do it is really great. I think like being able to like learn what works and what doesn't work before like you quit your job or you fully take the leap. Like doing that R&D can make you so much more confident in like what you're actually going to be doing. And I don't know, I'm still figuring it out. I feel like sometimes I still but like I would just to me like, oh my God, I want to be a small business owner so that I can like, have a flexible schedule or be this. And I would just say to anybody who's like, I want to be a small business owner so that I can like, have less work or XYZ. It's like completely the opposite. You're gonna work like twice as much as you would if you had a regular job. But it's beautiful and it's awesome. And like I think that it's really important to have a clear vision of what you're gonna do. It might not always end up being like that vision you set out with might change like 6 months or a year in. But I think kind of having like conviction and the idea that you want to pursue can really help. Like it's what you revisit when you're in your dark moments is like, no, I have like this mission that I really, really care about. And like for me, it really helps to just like when I'm feeling really down in it and like, why am I doing this? I'm like, no, there's a bigger picture to this and it's a part of a bigger web. And that's what like makes it feel good. I think like it's a great time to be getting into sustainability and environmentally socially sort of focused work because we really need it and it's really what's going to carry us through the next decade of like a warming climate and the challenges that come with that. So it's a good time to get into it. And if you have an idea, like don't be afraid to try it out.
Kind of focus on something that will help others and
Mhm.
not just yourself, which is really awesome. And I feel like you're doing a bunch of that with Men Mother.
Thank you. Yeah. Sorry, the train is pulling through.
No, no, you're all good.
But yeah,
You're all-
it's hard work, but it's worth it. The moments where people like appreciate your work that you're doing, like make everything worth it. So yeah.
Mhm. Well, as we come up to our last question, I just wanted to ask where can listeners learn more about Men Mother and also possibly get involved?
Yeah. It's a great time to ask that question. So we're coming in September, we're taking over Lump Art Gallery, which has been around for like 30 years. Myself and two collaborators are taking the building over. It's down on Blunt Street. So I'll be using half the space, and then the other half will be used as sort of like an interdisciplinary arts event space. So we're going to have a lot
Mm,
more space and a lot more opportunities to get involved, whether it's like volunteering or interning or, some part time work. But I will also say, like, just keeping tabs on our Instagram and our website for like workshops that we're hosting. And we'll probably be doing, I'm really hoping in the fall that we might start sort of like an open studio program where people can come and work on sewing projects in our studio if they don't have space at home. So there's going to be a lot of fun stuff that we're kind of promoting and working on throughout the summer as we get closer to moving into that new space. So yeah, I mean, Instagram is definitely like where I'm the most active with like promoting stuff. So that would be the best place to check out. I'm gonna be doing like some fundraising this summer too, just like sliding scale stuff to try and earn a little bit of extra money to like get some new furniture for my new space. So yeah, it'll be a busy summer, but come the fall we'll have kind of a street level brick and mortar situation, which will be open 5 days a week.
That's so exciting. I'm so
Yeah.
glad to hear that. That's going to be such a cool space
Yeah,
and
it's
just
gonna be
environment to be
so
in.
fun. We're calling it, so the current gallery is called Lump, and we're gonna be changing the name to Plum. So also go
I love
follow
that.
Plum on Instagram. We're gonna be having workshops, live music, community like craft nights, community art engagement. So it'll be really cool to kind of like weave Men Mothers business concept into kind of an active like art space. And yeah, it'll be super welcoming, and everyone's welcome there. So yeah, I'm super excited.
I know that does sound so exciting. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you again so much for coming on the interview and talking about Men Mother and everything you do. It's so cool. And I like it's also just very inspiring for anyone listening that is trying to or wants to go that route with kind of creating their own business or even just getting more into the sustainability of textiles and all that stuff.
Yeah, well,
So
thanks for interviewing me. I appreciate coming on. It's like always an awesome opportunity to chat with new people, and like I just appreciate the airtime.
but I just want to encourage all of you guys to check out Men Mother. It's such a cool place and just an amazing sustainability opportunity. Like, you can get some new clothes, you can learn how to prepare them yourself, you can just learn more about so much stuff, which I feel like we kind of are desensitized to um, in this day and age. But thank you all for listening to Oak City Move. Once again, I'm your host, Sophia Magnanini, and if you're interested in listening to this episode again, or to past episodes of the show, you can go to wknc.org/podcast and make sure to tune into our show every other Monday on WKNC 88.1 FM Raleigh. Have a great day, y'all.